You guys, have you been seeing the exposure within the fashion industry? Y'all know this is right in my wheelhouse. This is right up my lane because many of you know that I'm a slow fashion designer. And to see the exposure behind these luxury fashion brands and how they were sending their products to China to get them manufactured and produced at a cheaper price and then shipped to places like Italy, smacking a logo on it, and then saying because that logo was on it, that they can charge $40,000 for a handbag and $17,000 for clothes, shoes, and whatever else. Everything that I have been saying for years has been laid out in front of you guys, and it's all over social media. So let's talk about self-worth and our value when it comes to these possessions and material things that we buy to place on our bodies. All right, you guys. So like I was saying, many of you guys know that I'm a slow fashion designer, and I put that on pause early last year because God has me heavy in my ministry bag right now. He had me start Edify the Soul, a women's ministry. He has me doing Christians in Business now that was just launched yesterday. I'll talk to you guys more about that in another video. And then he just has me just really speaking more about him, his gospel, his truth, just so people can be more aware of where their fulfillment and freedom in life comes from, who's their father, who's their creator, their leader, who is this Lord and Savior that we call him to be, right? So he has me way in that bag right now, and I actually really love it because I'm helping so many women just find themselves, discover themselves, deepen their personal relationship with God, and just have a more clear and full understanding of themselves as a human and while we're here on this earth, what our purpose is, collectively and individually. So I'm really loving this direction he has me on. I never thought I would be here. Before God completely changed my life, within slow fashion, I would make dope women's apparel, and it was custom made or made to order, or I would do like really exclusive small batches for consumers to buy off the website. And I was always getting my apparel and fabrics from the African and Caribbean diaspora, right? To really just make clothing that spoke to Black and brown people and uplifted us and our culture and all these things. And I always said, I always taught my customers, as well as anyone who was around me, family members, friends, you name it, I just always taught everyone in regards to being a conscious consumer and really understanding what it is they're buying, like letting them know you're just buying the label. You're not that same quality that they're talking about. You can buy that thousands of dollars cheaper. And I wasn't just speaking hastily about it. Like, this is my profession. Like, this is something I knew deeply about, that I'm an expert within. And I know how much certain fabrics and textiles cost. And I'm like, that fabric doesn't cost that. And the labor for that doesn't cost that. And even if you add that plus that and the zippers, the buttons, all the tchotchkes, right? It still wouldn't equate to 50 to 60% of that price. So the way that they were upcharging and surcharging was just insane. And I would always tell people about it, that you're pouring into these business that, one, don't care much about your community, and two, is just filling their pockets of their own agendas, their own lifestyles, and creating empires for them, instead of really looking at the overall bigger picture of how it's supposed to create a collaborative empire that helps all of us, right? Like, that's what businesses should do. I always stood in that standpoint of a business should be for their local community as well as help humans in general, right? So not only are they selling a service or a good that you want, right, and that helps to serve or solve a pain point, but also just helps to elevate and pour back into the economy and gives jobs to the local community, and just it's very helpful on both ends, right? So that's how I always ran my business. And when I would see these companies and all the drop shipping that would occur, I'm just like, the mass consumption, the over consumption that is happening is really destroying not only our land, but like our ethics in regards to morals, and our ethics in regards to how we treat people, and our ethics when it comes to labor. Like, it was completely destroying that. Like, families could not feed themselves because they're getting paid pennies on the dollars overseas because most American companies know that you can, get things cheaper overseas and that you don't have to pay them as much as you would a American company or a European company, right? And I'm just like, that's unethical. It's just unethical. Like, there's no way a t-shirt should cost $5. Like, there's no way a whole pair of pants should cost $18, $12. Like, that a human is making these things. Pay them properly, right? The things that we allow other people to go through, and how disconnected we are, and desensitized we are from the needs of others, like, that's the part we got to change, y'all. Because when we stop caring about them, then the higher ups stop caring about us. So we really can't talk about like, oh, this isn't right, this is unethical, this isn't morally inclined, when it's been going on for other people. They've been living that way. So now, because it's affecting you, now we got to look into it, right? We got to be more mindful about these things. So this is why I started a slow fashion brand. Slow fashion is literally just the traditional way of creating clothing. Slow fashion is when you care about the make and the labor and the resources being used to create that garment. Like, everything holistically is being done in care and consideration and under good ethics, right? And that is what slow fashion is all about. It's not about this fast fashion world where it's capitalism over people, but slow fashion is more so people over capitalism. And that's the way that it should work. We care about the water and all the resources and the lights and the human labor. Like, we care about all of these things, and we want to ensure that all of these things are sustainable and that they're working with each other and in alignment with each other, right? And sustainable, the word sustainable is like a buzzword for the past 5 or 7 years. And I feel like a lot of greenwashing and all of those things are happening to where people will say like, we're sustainable, we got a sustainable line. And I'm like, how does that work? So 10% of your clothing is ethically made, and then the other 90% you just like turn a blind eye to? Like, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? So I've always just had this sustainable slow fashion brand, and I ran my business that way. So to see this exposure happens just really calls to the forefront like what we place value in, right? And how influencers and marketing really manipulates our mind to think that something else is of more value than a human life. Something else is of more value than us taking care of the lands of this earth that we live on. Something else is of more value than our own self-worth, right? Our own mental health. Like, we have to consider where we're placing our value in. And we have to consider our contentment with loving ourselves and our own life. The reason why there's mass consumption is because we always feel like we need more things, more things, more things, more things, more things, more things, more things. And it's like, do you really need more things? Do you really need another pair of shoes? Do you really need 3 to 4 outfits in the same color? Do you really need these things? Which is why I like more so legacy wardrobes, things that you can wear throughout all different seasons and for years, versus these trendy things that go in and out of style, and then you're left with a closet full of things that you don't really wear. You know, the exposure in all of this is really highlighting our values, our core values, and what we place importance in. And God tells us to like live a content life so that you don't have this insatiable appetite to always want more and more and more and more and more, because that's not sustainable. The Bible teaches us these things. God's word says these things, so we won't find ourselves in predicaments that we're in right now. Like, I remember being in college and I was about to graduate. I was also working a really good job at the time, so I had good money. I was making like $45,000 in like, what was this, back in 2010 or something like that. And at that time, that's good money, you know, and for a 21-year-old, a 21-year-old, right? So I was making good money, and I was like, I can afford, I'm graduating, so I'm going to give myself a gift, and I'm going to give myself something that shows excellence and that shows accomplishment, and that will set the tone for the next stage that I'm going to within my life. So I end up buying myself a Gucci handbag and some lubes, right? And I just felt like I was on top of the world. I was like, okay, now this is me growing up. This is me becoming an adult. This is me having status. And because I've seen that, right, because I was marketed that in regards to like, this is what status and luxury and self-care and all of that looks like, I put my worth into that. I put like, okay, so this is what this equals this, this bag equals I've made it. This bag equals I have status. This bag means I'm in a class with these particular people and I'm seen in this type of light. Like, that's what that meant to me at that time as a person who was just graduating college, right? And as I'm working more within fashion, whether that was like modeling or whether it was more on the creation, production of garment side, right? The actual sewing side, the actual design side, I started to see like, this is the price for this doesn't equate to that. Like, they got me. And that's when that mentality changed for me. That's when I started to go into a more sustainable, slow fashion lifestyle, as well as when I started to change in the way that I created things for myself, right? And then I started to create things for family members. And then it just started to grow into me creating things for friends. And then that's when I started my business back in 2017. But it took that journey of me seeing the behind the scenes, of me seeing what things cost and how that marketing of that affected my self-worth, self-value, how it influenced my value of things, influenced my value of possessions being in my life, and me feeling content off of that, right? But that's just a temporary dopamine shot of happiness. Happiness is fleeting and temporary. It doesn't remain. Joy remains, right? So it's like when I was going through that and becoming a slow fashion designer and creating the marketing of my business and creating the operations of my business and how I wanted it to be ethically done at all times, how I wanted integrity to be at the forefront, quality to be at the forefront, excellence to be at the forefront. My partnerships were basically in a way where it would feel like family. It would feel like friendships, right? I needed to know you. I needed to know your background. I needed to know the things you stood for, because if our core values don't align, I can't do business with you. If you're not properly paying your staff, if you are doing modern day slavery and working with individuals who are a part of modern day slavery, not paying their laborers, overworking them, hiring children, I can't rock with those ethics, right? So I was very particular in who I partnered with. I was very particular in who I hired and the way I ran my business. And I feel like if more business owners ran with those type of values, which are Christ-led values, we would have more businesses with integrity, right? We wouldn't have to worry about, am I going to get the right thing? They said I was going to get a pink dress, but did I get a purple dress that looked nothing like the photo? Like, those are ethics, right? Your business ethics are out of whack when you're doing things like that. So I took a lot of care in that. That's why when I talk to people about conscious consumerism, it's like we have to understand the value that we carry for ourselves, because then that leads into how we shop. And then that leads into what we want on our bodies. And then that leads into what we consider to purchase more of and purchase more from, right? These are all the things that work together within the world of consumer. I quickly came to learn that my value does not come from things, right? That was the college LaShawn, right? The grown woman LaShawn. Now that I'm 40, I literally turned 40 this year. So I'm now like, I'm just even more anchored in regards to where my value comes from. And I know my value comes from Jesus Christ. I know my value comes from God. I know my value comes from the person who says I'm the apple of his eye and that I'm a masterpiece, right? You ever had somebody call you a masterpiece? Like, when that happens, like, you start to understand that there's nothing you need in this life outside of God. Everything outside of God is just kind of like a bonus. It's an add-on, right? But you don't need stuff to give you value, because you already understand that you are a child of God. God owns everything. You're the child of a trillionaire, a gazillionaire. He has all the money, all the gold, all the silver, all the land. He owns it all. And he can make a decision to say this person gets it and this person don't. And then if y'all gonna act up, now I'm gonna take it away from you and I'm gonna give it over to these people who will do something good with it, who will do something fruitful for others with it, right? Like that's how this all works. God called us to be the salt and light of this earth. You know how much like power and authority he's given us to do that? Like we are the ones who show others how to do this thing called life. We don't fall into conformity of what they're doing. We lead the way. We lead the pack, right? So when we see something's inaccurate, we are the ones who create the change to better those things, right? That burden that's on your heart sometimes because you don't like this, you don't like the way this is done and all of those things, that's part of your calling possibly to step into those lanes to fix those things. I didn't like how everything was like so tight fitting and so high and all of these things when it came to how clothing was made when I was in high school. That's what led me to want to get into fashion so I can create my own clothing, right? It was a burden on me in regards to what was available to me. I didn't want to wear the short skirts. I didn't want to wear the super tight outfits, like that's not something I wanted to do at 14, 15, 16 years old. So I always had like this desire for fashion and just better styles, right? That burden put me into my calling and purpose, a part of my calling and purpose. So we really got to look into who gives us value, who gives us purpose, who calls us to be the individual of who we are. It's not these brands. These brands and clothing and shoes and accessories and all these other things are nice to have. It's not evil to have these things, but it has to be balanced and alignment with how much we are consuming these things. And if we are putting money and dollars into businesses that are actually for us and not against us. So how do you guys feel about this? Have you heard about what's been going on in the fashion industry when it comes to these luxury brands being exposed? Do you have a new viewpoint of what you will buy from here on out and what gives you value? Just know you guys are precious gems out there. There's nothing more valuable than your life and the life of others. Think about that first, not anything else but that. All right, y'all. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.